Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello. Welcome to the show. I think today is going to be a good one. I got a good feeling about this. This topic is something that's coming up more and more, and which is a good thing. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's one of the most promising aspects of what I see happening in the world is the rise of the divine feminine energy. Okay, it's absolutely mandatory that this happens for our future, in my opinion. and it's happening, and we can see it. You know, I understand that we had a setback with the Roe versus Wade thing where, you know, people coming in and, you know, whether you believe in it or not, it doesn't really matter for this conversation. like what side, like what your opinion is on that particular topic doesn't really matter for what I'm going to dive into. But some people are going to perceive that as a setback along these lines, right? Because their perspective is that it is stripping women of their right to choose, which they want. And I personally happen to agree with that. But like I said, if you don't agree with that and you think that it's a moral issue and it shouldn't be happening, well, you have the right to that opinion. I'm not here to discuss opinions on particular topics. Actually, that's exactly what draws us away from these things. About the real thing that's going on is we'll hyper focus, and we do this in all areas, not just the rise of the divine feminine, but we'll take a little aspect of it that we have a personal outlook on, and we'll make it about that instead of the bigger picture where most people all agree, right? most people agree that oppressing one section of society is a bad thing. Everybody that I know, you know, I would think that probably 100% or close 90% of women would probably agree with that because they've experienced the oppression. I think the majority of men, I don't know what the percentage of, but the majority of men I would think also agree with that. I think that there's obviously a section of the male population that wants to stay in charge. And who is it? It's generally the ones that are in charge, the ones that are at the top, the ones that are benefiting from the oppression, right? The average male isn't really benefiting from the oppression. Actually, the whole world is less than because of the oppression of women. So, including us males, it's just some of the men at the top don't see it that way because they're seemingly winning. So they think from their selfish and greedy outlook, right? That's why they continue to do it. But I digress. You know, this podcast is going to go specifically in the direction of feminine and masculine energy balance, because I believe that is what is needed. And I believe that the problems we have are a result of being out of balance. So what I mean by that is there is healthy masculine energy and there is toxic masculine energy. There is, and it happens when there's too much of one. That's how it becomes toxic. If there's no balance with the other side, which is the feminine energy, then, and there's too much of the masculine energy, that's when it becomes toxic. Masculine energy is not toxic, just like feminine energy is not toxic. They're just energies. There's nothing wrong with masculine energy or feminine energy. They both serve their purposes, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But it's when there's too much of one without the other, that's when it goes out of balance, and then it becomes toxic. Okay, which I think is evident in what we see now. Right now, the divine feminine, the healthy feminine energy is more powerful. It's more effective. It achieves, it kind of achieves goals better to some degree because we're out of balance, right? So nature understands balance. Nature is always trying to come back into balance. So this is why feminine energy has to be stronger right now. It has to be more effective, because otherwise it would just stay out of balance. It would like if feminine energy wasn't more powerful because it's out of balance, then it would stay out of balance. It would never come back into balance. So it has to be more effective. That's exactly what brings it into balance with nature. So we have way too much masculine energy in this world, which has turned it into toxic masculine energy. And then we have not enough feminine energy. So the masculine being toxic, what does toxic mean? Bad, destructive, not good, right? So when we have too much of it, it causes problems and this is destructive. And that's what's happening. So we have to, if we start bringing in more feminine energy, of course it's going to work better because we're in lack of it. So every time we bring in more feminine energy, it's going to bring the total collective back into balance a little bit more. And therefore, there has to be a positive feedback for that. There's a negative feedback when we go in the wrong direction, right? We went in the wrong direction of having too much masculine energy. So we went in the wrong direction. And what did we receive as feedback from the universe or from nature when we went too far into masculine? Well, we have a world filled with problems caused by it, right? So therefore, the opposite must be true. If we bring in more feminine energy, then it's going to help bring us into balance. And then we're going to have less world problems. We're going to have more solutions. We're going to have more peace. Why? Because we're coming back into balance. Now, I'm going to touch on this. I don't want this to become the topic of the podcast, but I want to touch on it briefly because it's something that I'm seeing that's starting to happen. Is that, in my opinion, what's happening is that most people, and of course, usually people who are more connected with a majority of feminine energy, which is the feminine of the species, which is women, the oppression is starting to lift. Well, I don't know that. I wouldn't even. I'm not even going to say that. It's not that the oppression is starting to lift. It's that the women are standing up more and speaking their truth and exerting their feminine energy more, which is beautiful because that's helping us come into balance. And it's really, I think it's the crux of a lot of wonderful things happening on the planet right now, is a direct result of feminine energy. And since women have a stronger connection to feminine, men have feminine energy too. We both have both, but I think it's a result of women, and the rise of the divine feminine energy, therefore the rise of women to their rightful seat at the table, right? Coming back into balance. And I think that this is all a wonderful thing. The piece that I'm going to touch on briefly is that whenever we're out of balance in any way in our lives, when we correct, we have a tendency to overcorrect, right? And that is something that I'm starting to see because there's such a rise of the divine feminine. In my opinion, what I'm seeing is an overcorrection. Just here and there, it's just sprinkled. I would say 90% of it is absolutely wonderful. That's why I don't want to make this that big of a part of the podcast. Is there's just a sprinkling of it happening, and I would venture to say we're probably going to see more of it as we make this correction. Why? Because it's nature, man. That's what we do. We all do it. We do it in our personal lives. We do it individually. We do it collectively. We overcorrect. It's kind of like when people start walking on the self-growth or the self-help or the self-love path, and they learn to set boundaries. Often people set too many boundaries and run around setting boundaries for the wrong reasons and in the wrong energies. Why? That's an overcorrection. They never had the ability to set a boundary. So now that they got the ability to set a boundary, they don't really understand how to do it that well, and they overcorrect and put them in the wrong way. Everything's like that. It's natural for us to overcorrect. It's the pendulum. So those of you that are watching the video, I can show my pendulum. I'll try to describe it for the audio listeners. But if you have a pendulum hanging straight down, that's balance. If you have it over to the right, that takes energy to hold it up in midair. Right? So if you let go of the energy that's holding it up to the right, and I just let go of it and it swung too far to the left a little bit before it came back into balance. Why? Because that energy that was holding it up to the right released. So then it overcorrects for a moment and goes too far to the left, and then it drops back into balance. This is just how change happens. So we're probably going to see that in some way, shape, or form. I just think that it's worth commenting on that. If we keep an eye on it and we keep an eye on what we're trying to achieve, we're going to achieve it that much more seamlessly, that much more effectively. Everything is a balance between two things. Like I said, with the setting boundaries, it's like, well, yes, setting boundaries is important, but also not letting everything get to you and take everything personally is important. When I was doing my corrections, like I think I was good setting boundaries in some ways, but not in others. And I was really diving into my spiritual path. So I kept trying to take the high road and rise above things. And I did a pretty good job in most scenarios, but I overcorrected. With my ex-wife, I just kept rising above, and I wasn't setting enough boundaries. So after a while, what I realized was like, she would get to me every once in a while. I'm like, why is this still getting to me? I'm working so hard to rise above this and not let this affect me. And what I heard was like, well, that's just one side of the coin. You have to balance it. So one side of the coin is becoming spiritual and not taking things personally and rising above it. But then the other side of spirituality is setting boundaries and going, hey, I'm not going to continue to just allow you to treat me like that. So we have to balance it between two things. Everything is like that. We live in a world of yin and yang, two sides to every coin. Everything is like this. So as a collective, there are men and there are women on the planet. The men have a majority of masculine energy with some feminine. The women have a majority of feminine energy with some masculine. It takes both of us to create a a balanced, energetic, balanced society that's effective, that has the qualities of masculine and has the qualities of feminine to propel us forward. That going back to the pendulum, it's like, if we have too much masculine, which we do, it's being held up to the right or left, it doesn't matter. If we have too much feminine, it's going to be held up to the left. If we're balanced, then we just hang right in the middle, relaxed, effortlessly. And then that releases the energy that we're using for dysfunction to hold it to the right or to the left. And it frees up that energy. So then we can just move forward use that energy to move forward in a healthy way. So this is, in my opinion, what we're trying to achieve. So if we keep our eyes on the prize, which is balance between both sides, we're going to get there quicker. If we start saying, oh, well, we need women to run the world because men wrecked it. Like, okay, well, yes, I agree that men wrecked it. kind of, like I agree with that concept, but why did men wreck it? That's just a blank statement that has no reasoning behind it. Like, why did men wreck it? Well, men wrecked it because we overpowered and used it to control and oppress, which is toxic. That's not masculine energy. Oppression is not a masculine energy. Look at a happy marriage. Well, a happy balanced marriage. Back in the day, we had roles that people just dropped into. And in some situations, if both parties want to live in a way where one side controls, and it doesn't matter if it's male or female, if you have two people and the male just has a personality where he doesn't want to have control, he likes being told what to do because he tends to overthink or something, right? Then he could meet a woman who likes being in charge, and they could make a wonderful pair. Why? Because of their personalities. He wants somebody that's more in control so he can relax and not think, and she wants to be in control. And if those two people form a union, then they're going to offset each other, right? Again, back in balance. They will be in balance. So it's just what we're talking about is collectively there has to be a balance. And even, for that particular example, if you want to use energies, you could say that the woman that wants to be more, I don't want to use the word control, more of the decision maker, the action taker. I'll say it like that. Maybe that woman is more connected to her masculine energy a little bit more than some other women. And which is fine. Like, we all have different variances within us, So, and then maybe the male is a little bit more connected to his feminine energy. Okay, cool. But if you offset each other, that's cool, and we can this is why we don't judge, is because we can have all kinds of different things and scenarios that work for us individually, because we're all individuals and we can find what works for us. It's not one way that works for everybody, right? But it does have to come back into balance. You can't have like two dominant people trying to dominate. You need one that's more dominant and one submissive for that to work. So again, this is kind of a tricky issue, because if you phrase something just slightly wrong, people jump on it. Yes, but, and why? It's because of all the oppression from the damn toxic masculine that has gotten the beauty of the divine feminine defensive, and rightfully so. They've been attacked. So I understand why they're defensive, but just to be clear, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not trying to attack. I want to feed this. I want us to come into balance, but that's what I want us to do, is come into balance. So to wrap this portion up, if we keep our eyes on the prize, which is the balance between the two, in my opinion, we're cool. If we start going into this mentality where men are the problem and women are the solution, then all we're going to do is we're going to overcorrect. We're going to swing out of balance into the toxic feminine, because that's what will happen. If we have too much masculine energy, it turns toxic and there's problems. If we have too much feminine energy, then it turns toxic and we will have problems. That will happen. Why? Because it's not balanced. That's why. that's the foundation for everything in nature, is balance. So if we are out of balance, there is going to be negative repercussions. That's why there's two. We didn't have two to have 3/4 of the energy of one and 25% of the energy from the other one. But that doesn't make sense. Anyway. So yeah, let's, if we can, as we navigate this, keep moving towards this balance between the two, then we're going to achieve that balance. It's we don't like ego wants to separate. Okay. So ego is about separation. So you can see the ego coming in when we start going like, oh, we have to tear down the masculine to build up the feminine. No, we don't. The masculine is going to fall apart. It already is, and it will continue to do so. And I mean, do we have to stand up to it? Well, sure. I'm just saying we don't have to demonize masculinity. That's all. Because there's nothing wrong with masculinity. There's something wrong with toxic masculinity. And it's a gigantic difference. If we think that there's something wrong with masculinity, we will declare war on it. We will attack it. We will destroy it. And then we will raise up feminine energy, and we will become out of balance, and we'll have a whole slew of problems. And we could go another 100,000 years being out of balance in a toxic feminine energy before we come back into figure out that, oh, that doesn't work either. Like, let's not do that, people. Let's have some peace on earth. Don't we freaking deserve it? Like, it's not about being right or wrong. Toxic masculinity is wrong, period. Toxic femininity is wrong, period. So we don't have to go into the toxic. We already experience toxicity. So let's just not experience toxicity, no matter what flavor it is. That's all I'm saying. So to get back into the energies, it's the, in my book, I have a chapter, feminine and masculine energies. And it's funny, like when I titled this podcast, I put feminine and masculine balance, and I put feminine first. Why? Because I wanted it first. I wanted to put it first, because to give it that little extra power, because it's been second for so long. Let's put it first for a while, right? So, and what's funny is I opened up my book because I have a chapter, feminine and masculine energies. And in my book, I entitled it with feminine first as well. So I must have been thinking the same thing years ago. So some of the examples is, I'm going to say the masculine versus feminine. I won't go through all of them, just give you some examples. Masculine is doing, feminine is being. Masculine is more of an aggression. Feminine is more surrender. Masculine is more analytical. Feminine is more intuitive. Masculine is more concrete. Feminine is more abstract. So if we have a balance between these two things, we have a beautiful world. But if we have too much being and not enough doing, that's going to start causing problems. And it's kind of hard to see because we've been so out of balance with the doing right now. But just disconnect from your conditioning that you've seen your entire life and just think about it energetically. Simplify it by thinking about it energetically. If we had, it's not about, when I talk about it turning toxic, what I'm saying is when there's too much, right? Too much, that's key. It's not when there's some, it's not when we're in balance, it's when there's too much. So when there's too much being and not enough doing, things don't get done. They just don't. Like what? I don't know. I don't know how that would manifest in the world. Maybe people wouldn't go to work enough. Maybe we wouldn't work, so we wouldn't make enough food. So then people would start starving. Maybe that's the version of it. Intuitive, analytical. Intuition is wonderful, but we have a brain to use too. We're supposed to be analyze things and think and use the tools that are given to us. We're supposed to do that. Now, usually the argument comes up and goes, like, oh, you're saying women don't use their brains? No, I'm not saying that at all. And I think women are just as intelligent as men. I don't think that there's a variance with intelligence levels. I'm saying that with energetically, there's a tendency to lean in more of a direction than another direction. And if we just lean too far in one direction, we're going to find ourselves doing something too much. That's what being out of balance is. It's the definition of being out of balance, is doing something too much. So I'm not saying that women nowadays don't use their brains and all they do is run around being intuitive. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that if we created a world where we only just lift feminine completely without paying attention to where the balance level is, eventually, probably quite a period of time from now, we're going to get to a point where we're sitting around not doing anything and we're not using our intellect to the capacity we are. Why? Because we're out of balance. And if you're out of balance, then it causes problems. See, it's not a slight on either sex. It's about us being in balance and creating a world where we can live together. We have to be careful that we don't become the oppressor. That's what happens a lot of times, and it's a direct result of the toxic masculinity being overpowering for so long. So what happens is the reason that since toxic masculinity has run the world for so long, it's unconsciously and social conditioning wise become a symbol of power, which isn't true. It's actually destruction. Toxic masculinity destroys and causes problems. It is not power, but it's become a symbol of power because men have oppressed, or masculinity specifically, usually in men, right? Of course, have oppressed for so long. So then what happens is if we're not conscious about the energy aspect of this, what happens is instead of women and men embracing feminine energy and allowing the feminine to come up by embracing it and allowing it to rise and using it more, what they'll do is men and women will use toxic masculinity to gain power or attempt to gain power, which just feeds the toxic masculinity more. So it doesn't actually bring the divine feminine back into balance. What it does is it just keeps it out of balance. It's just we'll have like if this went too far, just to try to show you what I mean. I don't think that this would actually happen. I'm just trying to make a point. Like if we don't understand energy and all we do is try to get try not to let these words trigger you, because I'm just trying to make a point. If women or men, I'm so trying to keep this balanced, because like I said, I know the words are going to trigger people, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want this to get into a misinterpretation where I'm putting down women in any way, shape, or form, because I'm not. If we have men and women, especially women, because they are the symbol of feminine energy, and they say we have to be in power, we need to gain control, we need to be powerful, and then they use toxic masculinity energy to gain that power, we're going to have the same problem, because now we have a bunch of women who are toxically masculine in their energy. See, it doesn't matter if men are toxic masculine or women are toxic masculine. Toxic masculinity is an energy. And if we use too much of it, if we misuse it, it becomes toxic and causes problems. And so it doesn't matter if a man is using it to oppress women or if women are using it to oppress men. Oppression is an example of toxic masculine energy. And yes, women are capable of it too. So this is why I'm trying to explain it. So, like I said, I don't think we're going to go that far to where it's like maybe when we come back into balance, we might overcorrect a little bit, but that's the whole point of this podcast. Maybe that'll be an aspect of the overcorrection. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like when we get closer, because we got a ways to go. So what I'm saying is, like, the best thing that we can do as men and women, both sexes, is understand what feminine energy is, study it a little bit, read the words, use a comparative setting like I have in my book. Like those I just read through like 3 or 4 examples. On the next page, I've got another, 15, 20 of them. And it says the masculine and the feminine. So, study this stuff and try to bring yourself as a human being into balance. Understanding that if you're masculine, you may have a little bit more of the masculine energy. So you don't have to come into perfect balance individually. But if you want to accomplish things in your life, if you are a man or a woman and you want to accomplish things in your life, most likely because of the world being out of balance, not just us individually, but the whole world being out of balance, if you implore and imply more feminine energies, you're going to achieve the results you want quicker and more efficiently, because feminine energy is more strong right now. So if I'm looking at the world and I'm going, okay, well, masculine energy says doing, feminine energy says being. Well, I'm a man, and my balance as a man in this particular body is more masculine energy and some feminine. So I'm probably always going to be doing more doing than I am being. But if I bring in more being and minimize my doing, because I'm probably way out of balance, God knows society is, right? If I bring some more being in, that will help balance me out. And in my pursuits, like in business, we can focus on more being in our business and less doing, and where it's going to actually help us achieve things quicker. Because we just think doing accomplishes things. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. A balance between doing and being accomplishes things the best. It's the most efficient. Same with concrete and abstract. We have to think abstractly. We're thinking too concretely, not enough abstract, right? All this stuff, like all of this, we have to, I'm talking about balance, but really, don't lose the point of what we have to do. Okay, so that this podcast is 2-part. It's not 1 part. I thought I was like just kind of going to lean into 1 part, but it's showing me balance. I need to have balance between these 2 topics in this podcast, because they're both important. One, I think is just easier to explain because I think it's pretty clear. We need the rise of the divine feminine energy. We need the rise of feminine energy. We need it. We need it. We need it. We need it. And if you bring it into your personal life, and if we bring it into the world, I don't care what sex you are, it's going to be better. It's going to be more effective, and you're going to be happier. And it's just, that's the easy part, man. Study masculine and feminine energy so you understand both, but you need to bring in more feminine. We all do. Okay. And understanding both sides, when you start coming to balance, you're going to recognize it. If you just study the feminine, and you don't understand the masculine, the healthy masculine, not the toxic masculine. We don't have to worry about the toxic masculine, especially if we keep bringing in the feminine. That's going to just fall apart. We can starve what we don't want. We don't want toxic masculinity. Okay, starve it. Because then there'll be less masculine energy. If we keep trying to tear down, see, this is why this is so important, I think, is because most people want to tear down what they don't like. And that's not how energy works, okay? You can't put energy towards something positive. They think breaking apart and tearing down isn't energy. They think it's destroying energy. People who think this way. You can't destroy energy. Like, you can't. Energy never dies. You can't. All you can do is not feed it. That's it. And it will diminish. And the universe doesn't understand against something. We are against too much masculine energy that turns into toxicity. Well, all the universe understands is you're putting attention and energy towards masculine energy. So your energy goes towards masculine energy. So your attention is energy, and it's being put onto masculine energy. So energy onto masculine energy. Energy onto masculine energy. Doesn't matter if you're saying, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it, or I do want it, I do want it, I do want it. It doesn't matter. The universe doesn't hear that. All it understands is energy, attention, energy, speech, action, all energy towards masculine. And that just expands the masculine. That's the opposite of what we want. So don't waste your time trying to tear that down. Just build up what you do want. Build up the divine feminine. Bring in more feminine energy. I'm telling you, it's going to be a hell of a lot less frustrating than fighting something that you hate. Which, fighting something that you hate, what is that based in? It's based in hate. It's based in anger. It's based in frustration. So what you're doing is you're putting out frustration energy. You're putting out anger energy. And expecting something good to come out of that. It's not going to happen. You can't put out bad and expect to receive good. This is why all the problems don't get solved. That's toxic masculinity. Fight, attack, tear down. That's literally toxic masculinity. It doesn't matter what soapbox you're standing on. I want more rights for women. It doesn't matter. Like, then put your energy towards more rights for women, and it will expand, and you'll be successful using feminine energy. But if you bring toxic masculinity into that topic, it's a problem, because the energy is what matters. You know, I always use this example because I love that this little Catholic nun, Mother Teresa, understood energy. You know, she got invited to an anti-war rally and she said, no, I won't go. But if you invite me if you have a pro-peace rally, I will be the first one there. I won't go to an anti-war. She understood energy. If we have, look at, this works on everything. Look at everything we declared war on, the war on drugs. What, in the 80s, we declared war on drugs? How's that going? We have more drugs than ever. More, the war on poverty, more poverty than ever. Well, we're going to fight for peace. How's that working? How many wars do we have going on in the world right now? Like in the 20s, 23, 27? I don't know. It's constantly changing. But there's always double-digit wars going on in the world. If war actually worked, if it created peace, then we'd have peace by now. We've been at war for 100,000 years. Like, it obviously doesn't result in peace because we've never experienced it. But we keep fighting for it. Oh my God, do we need some feminine energy? Oh. So yeah, it's about coming into balance. It's not about tearing down what we don't want. It's about building up what we do want, to come back into balance. You know, I've seen little sprinkles of this, but I recently saw a post about a matriarchal society that was saying that matriarchal society is everything wonderful about feminine energy, and a patriarchal society is everything toxic about masculine energy. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, that's just not how I see it. You know, hey, who knows? This podcast is my opinion. If you think I'm 100% wrong, that's fine. That's your right. I'm not going to try to change your mind. I'm just voicing what makes sense to me. But it was such a, like, I've been seeing these sprinklings of toxic masculinity being brought into the feminine side. And it always rubs me the wrong way, because in my opinion, it's not what we need. We don't need toxic masculinity tainting and messing up this beautiful feminine energy that we need more of. So it seems like, to me, it's going in the wrong direction. And that matriarchal society, now, hey, who knows? Like, I mean, I think perfect balance is the key. Personally, I think perfect balance. I just don't know what that looks like on a global scale. Quite honestly, we're quite a ways away from it. Maybe it actually is a matriarchal society as the general rule, but with but yeah, I don't know. No, I don't think it can be one or the other, man. I just don't see how it can be one or the other, because as soon as we're out of balance, we're going to have negative repercussions, because it's going to start turning toxic. I was trying to figure out a way, you know, theoretically, I guess what I was trying to come up with is a way of going like, okay, we have the matriarchal as the figurehead, and then we have a balanced feminine and masculine, like, behind them, that actually makes the decisions. I don't know. I don't freaking know. Anyway, the point is it just needs to be in balance. If we can find the balance, I don't care who's the figurehead. I'm guessing we probably wouldn't have a figurehead. I'm guessing that, because I certainly am not in. I am certainly not implying that we should have a male figurehead. Definitely not. I'm just saying that I don't think we should have either one as a figurehead. We've already seen what happens with the male figurehead. So definitely not that. If there has to be a figurehead, personally, I would probably vote for the feminine. That's just me. But I just don't think being out of balance either way, or having one even seemingly a figurehead, I don't even think that concept is a good idea. But yeah, that's basically it. I did want to touch on just this. I was actually researching a little bit on this, and I found some great things, like some images. So this one, I'm going to hold it up to the camera if you can see it. Now, I know you can't see the words, but it's basically a yin yang symbol with pink representing the feminine and blue representing the masculine. And it says healthy feminine energy is open, patient, caring, wise, flexible, compassionate. And that's the pink side of the yin yang symbol. And then there's a dot, and it says the dot of masculine energy, the blue, balances feminine energy, gives it a little bit more structure and focus. Then the other side, the blue side of the yin yang symbol, says healthy masculine energy is focused, disciplined, active, has a purpose, has a vision. And it says healthy masculine contains a little bit of feminine energy. A dot, that's the dot, the pink dot in the middle on that side. A dot of feminine energy softens it and deepens it a bit and makes it wiser. Okay. So unhealthy feminine and masculine energy. That is basically kind of in this example, it's removing the dot and just having the swirl on each side without the little dot of balance. Feminine energy that is completely absent of masculine energy becomes stagnant, formless. It needs that little blue dot to keep it moving. Masculine energy, unhealthy masculine energy that is completely absent of feminine energy becomes destructive. It needs that little pink dot to give it heart and depth. Okay. And then there's one more chart I'm going to go over, which I thought was really good. So it says masculine and feminine energies. So excess, too much masculine yang results in domination, aggression, controlling, rigid mental constructs, anxiety, forcing, distant. That is basically what we see in our world, in my opinion, right? That's excess masculine yang. Now, the balanced masculine, what does that look like? Or actually, I'll do the insufficient masculine. When there's not enough masculine energy, what happens? Insufficient masculine yang. Fearful, withdrawn, spineless, lost, hopeless, stagnant, scarcity, dull, unaware. So now what do we get when we're balanced with the right amount of masculine energy? Valor, assertion, direction, methodical thinking, action, giving, consciousness. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing with the feminine energies. An excess of feminine energy, too much. What does that result in? Martyrdom, depression, spacey, confusion, stagnant, needy, wallowing, over-emotional. Now, what is not enough feminine yin? Insufficient feminine yin results in smothering, only outward, rigid, overthinking, nervous, frigid, cold, dry, blocked, emotionless. Some of these are actually very similar to the masculine. Because it's out of balance. When you're out of balance, it's problems. Problems are problems. So what is the balanced feminine? Balanced feminine is compassion, introspection, Geez, I guess I need some more feminine, huh? I can't even say that word. Introspective. I think I'm pretty introspective too. Introspection, flow, wisdom, intuition, patience, receptive, creativity, emotional. Okay, so now I'll most likely I'll finish with this. If we want a balanced world, right, then we have to have the balance of masculine and feminine. So now I'm just going to go right down the middle of this chart and explain what a balanced world would look like. Balanced world looks like aspects of the masculine will have valor, assertion, direction, methodical thinking, action, giving, consciousness. The balanced feminine will bring compassion, introspection, flow, wisdom, intuition, patience, receptive, creativity, emotional. That sounds like that's it, man. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for the balance between these two. That's everything. Can you imagine a world like that? And we can get rid of all the toxic, all the domination and aggression and the controlling, and we can get rid of the martyrdom and depression and the confusion. We can get rid of all the fearful, hopeless stuff and get rid of all the overthinking and nervousness. Get rid of all that and just land in the balanced middle. That's where I see us going. So, in summation, I think that actually sums it up pretty good. So, to get here, yes, we need a rise in the divine feminine. So, can we focus on that? like I think to simplify everything, I was trying to paint a picture so we could understand the dangers of going too far and the reality that like men or masculinity isn't bad and women or femininity isn't good. We're both good and we can both be bad if we go too far. So it's not one or the other. We're both here on the planet for a reason. We're supposed to come together and respect one another and work together to create this beautiful society that we're capable of together. That's the whole point, and we can do it as long as we stop fighting one another and focusing on coming together. And right now, I think in human history, the best way to do that is just understanding masculine and feminine energies and focusing on the rise of the feminine. Doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, just focus on understanding what is feminine energy? What does it look like? And how can I bring more of it into my life, into this world, into my business dealings, into my life dealings, into my interactions with other people? How can I bring more feminine energy into my life? If we just do that, that's going to help us come back into balance. As long as we have it as the goal of not overtaking the other and coming into balance. So that's the prize. The goal is to bring both sides into balance. And how are we going to do that? By the rise of the divine feminine that we don't have enough of. So that's what our focus needs to be, the rise of the divine feminine energies. Why? Well, that's when we start bringing in the masculine energy, paint the big picture to see what we're trying to accomplish, right? But as far as what we need to do on a daily basis, it's just rise the divine feminine. That's the actual action we have to take. That's the actual work we need to do. The work we need to do is all about bringing in more feminine, not because feminine is better than masculine. It's because we don't have enough of it and we're out of balance. And we're trying to get back into balance, right? So don't demonize one, just feed the other, and that will come back into balance. All right. That's going to do it. Hopefully you guys like that. Yeah. I think that will do it. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. And feel free to let me know your comments. I'd love to hear them. All right. Thanks. Peace to everyone, both 2. Peace.